I find it interesting that so many people live in this world and have duplicitous stances on things depending on how they feel. So I discovered this the other day because it's been a long time since I interacted with a bald eagle, but someone brought up that this was possible, so I looked it up. So here's the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act, which says that it is illegal to take an eagle egg without permission because eggs, eagle eggs, bald or golden eagle, are regarded as real eagles, or they're protected as if they were. Contrast this to the eggs of any other species that you know of. I'm sure there are others with similar protections, probably endangered species and such. But they are protected by stiff penalties just to have one or to destroy it. Let's see, down here it says number 2 here in the center, a decrease in its productivity, substantial interfering with normal breeding or sheltering behavior. So it is illegal to disturb unborn eagles because the eagle, according to these provisions of 50 CFR 22.6, show that it is not simply, in the case of like feathers, nests, or other things, an accoutrement or a belonging of the eagle, but that the egg is regarded as a potential eagle. Fortunately, for a lot of other species, we don't see these same provisions. Otherwise, I don't know what you would eat for breakfast and how you would do cooking, because eggs are an essential part of almost every animal diet, and at least every animal that's a carnivore. In fact, there are certain animals that rely predominantly on eggs because that is the easiest way to get all the sustenance that they need to survive until they can next find another egg, because they don't need all the eggs in the clutch. They don't have refrigerators to keep them. So they'll go and they'll steal an egg, which is prohibited in the case of eagles for humans to do so. I'm sure there are other protected eggs. But it begs the question, why aren't unborn humans afforded the same protections? In fact, you can cause an injury to unborn humans. You can decrease the productivity of unborn humans. You can substantially interfere with normal breeding, feeding, or sheltering behavior of unborn humans. You can interfere with unborn humans, and there are not only no penalties, you will be celebrated in certain circles. So, a violation of the act down here says can result in a fine of $100,000 and imprisonment for a year. Can't have any of them. You can get a permit for educational use or scientific or religious purposes. This is an old law, 1940. It's part of the United States Code, federal law. And yet, we slaughter humans as yet unemerged by the millions every year. No penalties. And it begs the question, what makes an eagle more worthy of protection? The only argument I can think of, which I will offer you, is that humans are not in any danger of going extinct. However, if you look at China, China is having a population collapse because for a long time China had a one-child policy, which I understand under the circumstances, which created an entire generation of only male Chinese because everyone wanted to have a son. And even though there's a ton of men, very few women, the women are picky and the men aren't picking them. And so China's not having children to replace the generation that only had sons. And China's population is going to contract. I don't think humans will go extinct. I don't think China will go extinct. But it will certainly change. And so maybe this is about that. But I understand protecting the unborn young of an extinct species. What I don't really understand is that humans are the only species I know of that will put the survival of other species over their own. We enact laws and disable access to raw materials and areas and regions and activities, and the preservation of other species at the expense of our own. And I understand why that might be. There's one good valid argument I can think of, and that is that we are connected, and if we eliminate a species on whom we are unknowingly dependent, then we hurt ourselves. But other organisms don't know this, they don't think of it, and they don't care. Other organisms might slaughter their entire food source and then die of starvation because they don't have the foresight to think about that. And it doesn't bother any other organism that does that. We're the only ones that seem concerned about that, as if humans are all going to die. Because mass extinction usually isn't from malversation and bad behavior. It usually is some sort of cataclysmic event that is associated with that, or human activity that hunts something to extinction. But I did find it interesting to look this up and find that unborn eagles have more rights and more protection than unborn humans. Yet another strange thing that humans do that doesn't make sense to me. So food for thought. I'm sure it plays into politics, and I'm sure you have your own opinions on that. In case you weren't aware of this, I thought you ought to know. And that's my job as an educator, to make people aware. I have a golden eagle that lives near my house. I haven't seen him for a while, but I know I've seen his work. He will stop on the top of streetlights and rip pigeons apart. The first time I noticed him is because I was going under a streetlight and it was like dark still, and there were feathers raining down on top of me. And he was up on top, just ripping it apart. And I'm glad he's there, because you eat all the pigeons that you want. There are those plenty. And so he's doing us a service. But it is really interesting to see him. And it's one of the reasons I don't use poisons in my yard and things, is I don't want the eagle to eat something and then die, and then they find out I killed it, because that would be terrible for me, and it would be a terrible loss, because it's a very pretty bird. Years back when I first bought my house, he would sit on the back wall and hunt, because I live along a natural wash, so there's always a little bit of water in there, so there's always stuff to eat and water to drink. So he would perch there when there was a protected area to sit in, and use it as a hunting area. He of course was not bothered by me one bit, or threatened by me. Under normal circumstances, they have no need to fear that. But it is interesting that they are protected by our laws, and our own offspring are not. Fascinating. Anyway, Godspeed, take care, and if you want to share this, I'll put the link to the government webpage in the description. Ciao.